Hey there. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Good. I do hear you. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Technology's great.
Isn't it? Well, it can sometimes. It tends to have its own mind.
It does. I like your
Happy
backdrop better
Tuesday.
than my backdrop.
Well, I worked
It's
on it.
nice and
That's for
pink.
sure.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
cool. I
it's a
like that.
favorite. Thank you. Thank you. I have all the houses that I'm going to sell this year, and then some affirmations there as well. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Awesome.
So welcome, Betsy. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a busy week for you. It is for every minister. It's Holy Week in the Christian faith. So
Right.
thank you
That's
so
right.
much.
You're welcome.
Yes. So you have written a fun little book. Stepping on Cheerios, that talks so much about it talks about motherhood in its rawest format sometimes.
Sometimes
It does. And then it incorporates faith along with that, which to me, that is so important. It's also so important to me to talk about motherhood and in the way that you speak about it, because we don't speak about it in that manner so much. We don't give ourselves the permission to have that conversation with ourselves, much less with others. So Thank you for putting it out there.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about Betsy. Who is Betsy, and how have you come about this journey?
I'm actually a lifelong Methodist, and so just to frame my career choice, since a lot of women are power moms, work outside the home, it's all work, but so we split that time. My calling probably was a lifelong in coming. I was baptized actually on Palm Sunday over 50 years ago. Well, 50 years ago, about. I don't want to give away too much.
Okay.
And so I grew up in that tradition. I had lots of friends in many other traditions, so learned to be very ecumenical as a Christian, but also other friends along the way, Jewish friends, and as an adult, friends who are Muslims. I've got a lot of different friends, but I think that made me stronger in what I believed. It made me say, well, why do I believe this specifically? Not just why am I continuing with my faith journey. So over time, as I served more in my local church after I got out of college, I kept feeling this nagging feeling I needed to maybe consider a call to ministry. And it was, let me just say, it was very emotional, because I couldn't get over the fact that, hey, wow, God could be calling me Betsy. And this was in 1986, 87. And so to this day, there are a lot of traditions who don't ordain women. Ours has been doing that for over 60 years, but it wasn't common here in Arkansas. The South was still kind of lagging behind. So, and now there are over half of seminarians in the United Methodist Church are women. So lots of women have come into Arkansas as pastors since I started. When I started, there were very few. Back in 1987, it was when I went to seminary. I served as an associate at Benton First Methodist. Still have a lot of friends there, starting in 89, and finished my school at SMU, and ended up, I served in Mesquite, Texas at a Disciples of Christ church my senior year while I was finishing my degree. Pardon?
No, I just found that interesting.
Yeah, it was great. I had a great senior pastor to work with. It was a lot of fun. Then I was appointed to a 3-point charge after I got out in South Arkansas, what was called and is called the Blevins charge. Had 3 little churches, so I was truly a little circuit rider. At 9, 10, and 11, I preached 3 times in the morning. So I had my little car, my little Honda, driving from church to church.
That's a busy Sunday.
Yeah, and such sweet and loving people. And so they trained me up some. And then I got a call from Vic Nixon, who was senior pastor at Pulaski Heights. And I knew his daughter at Hendricks. We were at Hendricks together. And he asked me to be his associate or one of his associates. And so I came back to my home church in 1992 and then stayed here for 8 years. And I went through a difficult divorce, and I really did not feel like I could take care of people the way I needed to. So I thought, I'm going to take a break. I took a sabbatical. It was supposed to be a year, but after 6 months of studying different things like, could we use jazz in the church? How about more gospel in white churches? Ambient arts, different kinds of things. So I went and studied that. But then my bishop in DS called me and said, "Hey, we have a church for you." And so I went to 2 small churches again, Hazen and Devall's Bluff. And I always like to say they were my good Samaritan. They picked me up for my sort of bruised self after a not good marriage and dusted me off and healed me, and then sent me on to my next appointment, which I was at Quapaw Quarter for 8 years after that as senior pastor. And then I went to Trinity for 4.5 years. And then I wrote my book, and then I came back to Pulaski Heights. So it's been a lengthy journey, primarily in the Methodist tradition, sometimes as an associate, sometimes as a senior.
So that's been your pastor journey. So somewhere along the way, got remarried, and you had 4 children.
Yes. I thought maybe that was over for me and that wouldn't happen. And, especially the children thing, because I turned 40 a few months after I went to Quapaw. And so, but then I met my husband, and actually I was thinking of adopting and in different ways, maybe that I could become a parent on my own. And then I met my husband actually being out in the community at an arts event. We were a church that reached out to artists. That was part of our mission. And I met my husband, and we started dating, and I decided it might not be a good idea to have a baby on my own yet. So he was in Congress. He served the 2nd District for 14 years. So we met during that time while he was busy in his career, and I was, starting up another church. But he was so supportive. He came almost every Sunday. Occasionally he would be off in the community going somewhere else, but or if he was in DC. But we dated for 2 years. He had never been married. Neither of us had children. And so I told him, as my sister said, I gave him the ultimatum. The ultimatum.
You had so the talk.
I had the talk. It says, okay, 2 years. And if we're going to go forward with this, time to go now, because neither of us is getting any younger. So we I don't mince words on certain things like that. So we got married in the church on a Sunday morning, and my bishop did the homily, Janice Huey, which she was our woman bishop for 8 years. It was a wonderful time to see a woman in that role. I'm really fortunate that I got a chance to see that. Doesn't always happen. But we got married, and we bought a home in Robinwood together. We sold both of our homes, went to Robinwood, had a nightmare trying to get our house redone. Oh my gosh, trying to work and get pregnant. And him in DC back and forth. So it was kind of a chaotic time, but eventually we were using a fertility doctor here who said, you need to go to IVF. Y'all are so old, Abraham and Sarah. You need to go have IVF. So
because that's a great thing. I just want to put in perspective, there are 2 things that, a lot of people try to veer away from is religion and politics, and that's the first thing you embody. Right off the bat.
Yeah, and
together,
I didn't really plan to fall in love with a politician. And actually, I had already had a not so good experience with a doctor that I was married to. So he's also a doctor and a lawyer. So he was on the bubble at the beginning. I wasn't too sure about.
So that's a lesson. That's a lesson of go into everything with
don't judge a book.
Just no expectations, because you just never know.
You never know. You never know. And he's an incredible person and was so supportive of me. But we we went forward, not knowing what would happen. You never know. You know, none of us know in this journey of life, but also in this journey of marriage. And
right. Talk about marriage. You talk about marriage in the book.
Talk about marriage? Yeah, in the book.
And there's a sentence in there that you say, and I love it. It says on page 97, it says, marriage is an opportunity to love with abandon and get bathed in bits of Jesus's confetti.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that image.
In the confetti, I was actually trying to recast the story of the parable of the sower that Jesus tells. It's a very important parable in the Gospels, and Jesus not only tells it, but then of course has to explain it in great detail about the different kinds of soil when you're casting and broadcasting seed. So it occurred to me, wow, you know, what if you're like at a party and somebody throws out confetti? You know how confetti's real sticky and you don't ever really know where it lands. And if we saw love, Jesus kind of love, that self-sacrificing love spread that way, what if that love sticks to us and you don't know exactly who it's going to rub off on or where it's going to travel in such an infectious way, but you have to let it stick to you. If you pick it off, if you flick it off, if you say, oh, this is not for me, you're going to lose your opportunity to really go out and have that chance to really risk vulnerability. But with that vulnerability comes the opportunity to love really deeply.
Yeah, and I think as women, so much of the time we stay guarded.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I have a chapter on selfie too, and I talk about when we compete against each other as women and don't support each other, when we tend to talk about our weaknesses or someone else's weaknesses or someone else's clothes or house, or, you know, I would hate for y'all to see my garage, which is a playroom now. It's the Legos are everywhere right now. I mean, like in the floor, piles of Legos. It's bad. It's really bad. I was actually apologizing to my sister who walked into it yesterday. She goes, honey, you don't need to apologize for that. Right. That's right. Well, I don't.
Like clients all the time, you know, don't apologize for critiquing this. You haven't been to my house.
Right. And I admit I do that. I sometimes do that. I don't understand why people do the things that they do all the time. And sometimes it doesn't go with my idea of what people should do, should be, especially as a Christian. But, you know, forgiveness is really 70 times 70 is what Jesus said in terms of how many times. You know, sometimes it's hard for us just to get past that first time, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Just the first time. But if we make it a practice,
there's something I really like to say is get out of judgment and into curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think if we get into curiosity with one another and try to understand where the other has been, and so that way we know where they are now, and we can try to understand where they're going and maybe help them along the journey, then that makes a huge difference.
And I know a therapist who used that phrase, stay curious or get curious. When you're feeling something inside about someone else and it's negative or it's judgmental or anything like that, where's that coming from? Is that coming from your family of origin or where you've been or hurts that you've had? Because again, I know I have to do that and check myself and say, why do I feel that way? It's just an awareness level that we all, and I think it would make our lives so much more joyful if we
goes back to the mission of the group that we are to encourage women. We are to encourage rather than tear each other down, which women do so much more. And
I'm going to say something, Claire, you're a great model of that.
Oh, you know, I think that we're all doing work in progress, and I am no different. I think those that are close to me know that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we all have warts. You know, we all have our warts. Yeah.
Yes, but thank you. I accept that.
Listen, to moderate a group of women, there's got to be a lot of grace built into you.
Yeah, that hasn't been without a lot of practice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely.
So, yeah, but I just like the phrase Jesus is confetti. I firmly believe that we are all vessels of different things, whether it's your faith or of other things. And if we all view ourselves as just tiny pieces of Jesus's confetti running around the world as little vessels.
And if you're not Jesus-y, if you're coming to this from another tradition, you know, or but you can understand love. Yes. You know, what Christians really believe is that Jesus
to me is love. And so what faith is. God gave us a brain to question and grow.
I always tell, especially children, I always tell children, well, Jesus is God's postcard to us. And we look at that postcard, it's love. Everything Jesus does is loving. So if we can try to do that, even when it's really, really hard. Yesterday, I was on my way, you know this already, to a funeral for a mentor, and I had the message. There were the kids who are friends of mine, young. They're not young, but they're grown. They're adults now, but they had things to say too. But I ran through Starbucks because I had not had my coffee for the day, and I was early. My sister was with me. I pulled in on the opposite side from where the line forms, or I was sitting there. I hadn't done anything yet, and the woman across from me pulls up and goes like that, you know, like, you know, and immediately inside I'm like, gee, you know, I was thinking if I could tell her I'm on my way to a funeral,
right?
And I went, giving her the signal, go on, sister, and I smiled. But inside, I confess I didn't even know her, and she hurt my feelings. But she was mad because she thought she wasn't going to get her turn next. And I thought, wow, I can wait on you because I just lost a friend. And, you know, that's really, that's more important, frankly, right now than being first in line. If we could apply that more minute by minute, that's the Jesus confetti you're talking about.
Well,
you know, maybe she didn't know I was giving her some Jesus confetti.
That's good.
It was because that part of me was like, "Hey, sister."
And then we must take things, our conversations, others' conversations, other actions, apply them to ourselves, learn from others' mistakes, our own mistakes, take them to our level, and then think, how can I help her? How can I help make her day better?
Right.
For her Starbucks and say, you know what, you need coffee more than I do today.
If she had let me in first, I could have given her the Starbucks.
That's it.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do that to someone else who looks cross.
That's it. Yeah, I'll just give you a cupcake. It's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Some of that. And so you talk, I think so many times as women, we don't give ourselves the permission to let go of things. And you talk candidly about that as well, about letting go and how we don't give our permission to leverage things in our lives. And we don't give ourselves permission to let go of things, even if it's breath. And I know you never had the idea in your head for your life to drive a van full of children.
Yeah.
And you had to let go of that too. You had to give yourself permission and be okay with the next phase. And we don't do that either. So what do you think women hold themselves back from the most?
I think that sometimes we believe we have so little power that, again, we have to arm wrestle each other for it, and we really don't. There's plenty of power, just like there's plenty of love, you know, so we don't need to do that. We need to remind each other of that. And I have some women friends in my life, as I'm sure you do and others do. Mine, for me, is my sister. I have another friend. You know, all my friends pretty much have come from church, but they remind me. They remind me of who I am and what centers me and keeps me, like you said, balanced. I always say, well, I'm pretty unbalanced.
Well, okay, now, because we all are. So you know, and you're a woman of faith, and so I can say this, and it resonate. But I have rocks within my faith, and one of those is John 15, which basically will, I'll say, prune back the unfruitful branches of your vine, so that you may be for Him. And so, anytime the pendulum goes one way too much, it's time to prune a vine. Right. It's time to prune a branch.
That's so that great. Your vine
is more fruitful. So you prune the branch so that the pendulum go back the other way for balance.
That's a great analogy.
Too far the other way, prune that branch so that your vine can be more fruitful for Him and for those in your life. Yes. And so that, truly, to me, there is no such thing as balance. And when we get rid of the expectation that there is, what freedom we will have.
Liberation, like
liberation.
Real liberation.
Get rid of it.
I agree, because
oh my God, get rid of the idea, the mentality of perfection and balance.
Yeah,
give yourself permission to let it go.
A book that I read.
I'll get on a soapbox.
I agree. Jen Hatmaker has a lot to say about that, and she'll say, people say, "How do you do it?" In one of her books, "How do you do it?" She was like, "Are you kidding? I don't do all of it. I have help." And that's another thing I tell people. You know, I don't have grandparents. My mom died 6 years ago. My dad before that. My stepdad before that. But I have siblings. They're all older, and they function as the grandparents. And I lean on them. Yeah. I ask them to come to baseball games. They want to, and so they can't do everything. But when it's Grandparents' Day, they've always, you know, a group of them has always been there. If you don't have, if it's not, and not only that, but we have, and I suspect and hope that other Power Moms have friends that are like family. I call them family. Yes. Friends that are like family. They will do it. We have a guy that's a good friend of ours his name is Dale, and we call him Uncle Dale. He's not kin to us. He shares holidays with us. And Uncle Dale is one of those people that my boys rely on. Right. So I think that's wonderful. We've got to remember, you know, and it's great if you can have paid help. You know, if you have some paid help, but most of us don't have that luxury. We are at this point where we do have a babysitter in the afternoon. And that's great. But and Jen Hatmaker says she makes breakfast, but she doesn't cook dinner. So, you know, you got to kind of pick and choose. She says she's the morning person, you know, and she can do that. So, and remember, we have, you know, if you don't have a spouse, you do have family. You do have friends, and you do have family. And a lot of people, when we had the triplets, and there was a boy who was 2.5 in our house, and then little infants, we had people sign up on a chart. And, you know, I talk about all this in the book. A big old chart in the kitchen, and just the love poured out. Now, was it hard to have people sometimes who were virtually strangers when they first came in and give them instructions about your kids and your house? And I felt invaded at times. But then I also received so much. So even some of the hard things that we go through, and it wasn't like, and I know a lot of moms know this, that first time you have that baby, that first baby, and you have all this alone time. I had so much alone time the summer that Pim was born on May 23rd in 2006, and I didn't go back to work till August. And my husband was also still working in the summer, of course, and it was just me and Pin, my firstborn, and it was so cozy, and I breastfed, and which was hard, but, you know, we ended up getting through it. And then when I had the triplets, it was nothing like that. And I didn't have this sweet cuddle time, and it was like frustrating. It was not what I imagined, but it couldn't be. And if we could just kind of help each other, your life will not be, you won't be able to get it all done. You may have been able to get like 90% done before, or 95. Now you might get 50.
It's letting
be happy with that. Yeah. Yeah, be happy with what you can do. I just got out my Easter decorations, and I'm a pastor. I mean, I was like, oh my God.
I don't have Easter decorations.
Come over. I'll give you a few bunnies. I'll give you some bunnies.
I'm okay. I don't even know where the pastors are. I don't even know where baskets
Okay,
are.
we
They
don't
make
have our baskets out
Dad's
either.
house. And yeah,
I
I'm
love
really
it.
good with it. I'm okay. So what is the one thing you want every mother to know?
I think that, I work in an institution. We all do. A culture that has a certain DNA, whether it's
Yes.
your home or where you work.
Yes.
And you have to figure out what is that organization's DNA. This gets at the heart, I think, of our work life. And I think in my life, I've done some really good things with that. And I've also not understood a culture that I was in and struggled with it. And sometimes you have to say, well, what are the best tools that I can seek, whether it's leadership books, or mentors or other people in that field, or maybe it's a bad match. You're not meant necessarily to be in the same job or the same place forever. So sometimes I really hate to quit. I don't like to feel like I quit, but I've been aware at times, okay, I think, God called me here, but maybe God's calling me out of here. And it's time to move on to something different and listen to that instinct, because I know a lot of women who don't listen to that. And that's true sometimes of a really unhealthy marriage or an unhealthy friendship or an unhealthy workplace, right?
Yeah. Right. Your inner voice.
Right. Listening to the inner voice, and then being aware in your own family. What are your healthy practices? I don't think we always think of our family as having its own DNA culture. How, and we all bring stuff and we create this new family, as adults, but we bring a lot of our early family with us, our family of origin. And so what do we do with that? And I think I've seen a lot of couples who struggle with, well, this is what we did for birthdays in my family. We didn't really care about them. Oh my, well, let's have a conversation about that. And that's a minor thing really, but it can be a big thing.
It can.
So sort of understanding who you are and what those challenges in your family's culture, your work culture, even relationships. I think that's really important.
What are the biggest things that motivate you, that inspire you to stay on track within the journey?
Well, probably my kids. To be perfectly honest, they inspire me a lot, because I just wrote a piece for Little Rock Family Magazine. I do a little column for them, and I was writing about the things I might not do at my age if I didn't have kids. Like last week we went zip lining, and I did the free fall. The free fall, I admitted it scared me. I got up there, I couldn't see where I was going to drop from, and I saw my kids were going zoom. They were just disappearing. And for that second before you take that leap, my stomach just kind of clenched, and I thought, I've got to do it now. My kids are. Although I think it's okay to say, okay.
No, I think that touches on so important. I think that we get in what I call the mommy rut after we have children, and we forget about our inner self, our inner child, and we quit living. We quit play, and we quit that adventure side. And it needs to come back. And we need that, whether our children is that challenge, or friends, or that inner circle that you were talking about earlier that keeps us in check. And so we have to have that. And it's so important to get out of that mommy rut. We can't wear the clippy and the sweatpants forever. We just can't. In order to get of a different mindset, and to have that adventure come back out in us.
And I mean, then like on spring break, one of my kids said, we haven't talked enough, and I want to talk to you about Minecraft. Well, Minecraft is not exactly the first topic of choice for me, but I really don't know that much about it, and I have boys who love it. So I said, okay,
Right.
we're away. Mom's not distracted. I'm going to give you all evening to tell me about Minecraft. And I actually enjoyed our conversation. So when we do set aside some, we've got to set aside some time for ourselves. But that time, it goes by so fast. And those of you who have very young children, oh my goodness, it goes by so fast. And everybody tells you that. But, I have an 11-year-old and I have 9-year-old triplets, and I'm already seeing, that individuality and the freedom that comes with growing up and moving on past your parents. And you want that to happen, but you also need to remember, put down your cell phone, go and plug it, hide it, put it up for the evening. I try to put mine on the charger up in my bedroom in the evenings. That's not always practical, but as often as I can, I do try to do that so that it can be us.
Yeah.
Because, and I read the paper. The newspaper is on my phone. All the papers I access to keep. And as a pastor, you have to keep up with current events. I have to know what's going on in Little Rock and Arkansas and in the world. And I was reading the papers, but my boys thought I was playing on my phone, even though I was like, okay, but I'm reading the paper right now, so they weren't being sent the right message. So we changed that, so now when they see me read something, it's a book or it's a, like we got a new National Geographic. So I was reading, last night at National Geographic. So I want to model the reading part, but I didn't want to model the glued into the phone part, even though it's worthy and a good thing to read the paper.
So what you're talking about is just absorbing your children.
Yeah. And letting them absorb you. Yeah. Letting them absorb you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that has to be sort of a mutual.
Up just a little bit. You may be getting a call or a text.
Hang on, folks. Can you see me?
Thank you so much. Are you still there?
Hi. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still talking.
I see. You're still there. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's a great book. It's a quick read. It's such a quick, easy read.
Very quick.
And so many good points in it, especially in things we didn't even get to today, like self-care and getting your pet, which I know you're a huge fan of. So thank you so much, Betsy. I know your time is valuable, especially during Holy Week. I appreciate that
Claire,
so much.
Thank you.
So thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom, and thank you for sharing. So,
and thank you for your care for
Mom. Lovely.
Are we good?
I cannot see you, Betsy.
Okay.
There you are. You're better now.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder what happened.
It'll do that when texts come through.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you. Thank you for starting Power Moms and for helping all of the women in Little Rock, or at least reaching out to all the women in Little Rock to give them an opportunity to be supportive of each other. It's the bottom line. We need each other.
We do. And women are my passion.
And I'll tell you something. I'm really looking forward to coming to an actual event.
Sure. Absolutely.
I've been out of town the times we've had the dinners and the lunch.
Yeah. Many in the group don't realize it, but we are growing and spreading quickly. There are so many from outside Rock who have actually joined the group to participate.
Wonderful. So, you're going to have to just call it Arkansas Power Moms. It's going to have to be Arkansas Power Moms.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll
Happy
get there.
Holy Week.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.